Welcome to Kindly Neurodivergent with Kay. This show is to spend quality time with each other, kindly discussing the similarities and wide range of differences we experience. The experiences we discuss on this show are for educational purposes only. Please do not substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Before we begin, I respectfully request that if you witness any pauses during this show, please continue watching. I'm composing a spontaneous comment or question, someone processing their thoughts, in addition to repeating something that was unintelligible or misunderstood. It is natural discourse, and we can choose not to say anything while this is occurring. Today I have Elissa R. Mandel with me. She is here to discuss how motor planning and auditory processing impact speech development in neurodivergent children. Elissa R. Mandel is a renowned speech-language pathologist and clinical autism specialist with over 30 years of experience helping non-speaking autistic and developmentally delayed children find their voices and achieve independence. As CEO and founder of SpeechWorks by Elissa, communication expert at the Aspie World, co-founder of CLIMBRX, and an expert cast member on the upcoming TV show Legacy Makers, she empowers families with practical, root-focused strategies that turn seemingly impossible goals into real progress. Welcome, Elissa.
Thank you, Kay, for that wonderful introduction. It's such a pleasure to be here with you today. You are amazing.
Right back at you. Please introduce yourself.
My name is Elissa R. Mandel. I'm a speech-language pathologist and an autism spectrum disorder clinical specialist. I've been in the field for 30 years, and I am also late diagnosed myself. I have been searching out the most progressive techniques for 30 years and have combined everything that I've learned into one approach called SpeechWorks by Elissa.
Can you explain what motor planning is and why it's important in speech development?
I sure can. Motor planning is my specialty, not only for professionally, but personally as well. I have had the challenge of motor planning my entire life. And motor planning is the brain's ability to figure out how to move your body, basically. To move to do something and then actually do it. It's like your brain is writing the instructions to for your body to follow. So let's say you want to wave hello. Your brain has to plan out all the steps. Lift your arm, open your hand, move it side to side, and that's motor planning. Now imagine if your brain wants to wave, but it gets stuck in a step or two. And that's what happens when there's a motor planning challenge. When it comes to speech, motor planning is how your brain tells your muscles for speech. So your jaw, your lip, your tongue, your vocal cords, and all the muscles for speech breathing, how to make sounds and words. And if a child struggles with speech motor planning especially, they might know what they want to say, but their brain can't send the right message and instructions to their muscles to be able to speak. So it's not that they don't want to talk, it's that their brain is still figuring out how to get the message to all their muscles to get their words out. Mm-hmm. But with the right support and practice, we can help that system get stronger and stronger.
Motor planning is what my disability affects.
Yes. I would love to help you.
How do motor planning difficulties manifest in children with neurodivergence, especially in relation to speech and communication?
That is a great question. Well, typical children, they hear their mom say ball, their mom is throwing a ball, and based on what they heard, they manipulate all the muscles for speech based on auditory feedback. For kids on the spectrum, they have more different learning styles. So they can't just learn how to move their muscles based on what they heard. They need physical prompting, tactile prompting, verbal prompting, any prompting that's going to allow them to learn in their unique style. And so it's important that parents learn about different prompts out there to give them the prompts that they need that they can learn from.
For people unfamiliar, what is prompting?
Prompting, there's all different prompts. I can talk about this for hours. So, like tactile kinesthetic prompts, you can touch and move. So, for example, if you say ah, you can move the child's chin down, ah, to help them move with the jaw. But it really depends on what muscle they're having the most difficulty with. With a lot of my clients, they have difficulty with moving all those muscles. So there are so many prompts out there, so many tools. There are for coordinating muscles for speech breathing. There are a group of horns, and each horn gets harder and harder to blow. So it's like going to the gym and increasing weights over time. And it's a fun activity that parents can do with their kids at home. There's so many different tools and techniques and auditory prompts. There's a headset called Forebrain, and that is a bone conduction headphone that actually stimulates the bone. When we hear, we can hear through our nerves and we can hear through our bones. So this stimulates and allows children to increase their auditory channel to be able to learn through auditory feedback like their typical peers do. I can give you a list of millions of different progressive tools out there.
Very interesting.
Mm-hmm.
How does auditory processing differ in neurodivergent children, and what impact does it have on their speech and language development?
That is a great question. Well, auditory processing is, a lot of people think it's just about hearing, but it's not. Auditory processing is what the brain does with what your ears hear. So a person can hear the signal, their brain just can't process the information. So you can think of it as if your ears are the microphone and you put in information to the microphone, and then think of your brain as a computer. So basically, if the computer is not able to process what you put in the microphone, that's a good example of auditory processing. So if a child has auditory processing difficulties, they can hear just fine, but their brain might have trouble making sense of the words, especially when there's background noise or somebody's talking really fast or really slow, or when they're given directions, especially long, complex directions, they'll have a breakdown. Imagine being in a crowded room and someone is talking to you, but it sounds like they're underwater. That's what it can feel like.
How do you know that difference between motor planning and auditory processing?
Well, they connect, but they're very different. So, motor planning is moving muscles and your brain telling your muscles where to go, while auditory processing is taking the sound or words that you hear and your brain processes the information. So, with one, your brain is telling your muscles where to go, and the other, your brain is struggling to interpret the information that is heard. Does that answer your question?
Is it hard to figure out what one is the problem?
No, man. A client go to an audiologist, and an audiologist will test to rule out that it's a hearing loss first. Once that's ruled out, then they'll do multiple tests to determine if it's a processing disorder. And once they can diagnose that it's auditory processing disorder, they will immediately refer to a speech language pathologist. And that speech language pathologist is the one that treats the disorder. So when a client comes to me after being referred by the audiologist, I will give them a battery of tests in auditory processing. And auditory processing affects reading, so I'll test their phonological awareness skills. Are they hearing sounds correctly? And then I'll test them in memory as well. Can they repeat words? How many words can they repeat? Can they repeat numbers? Can they repeat them backwards? Can they repeat sentences? And then after that, and memory is really important for picking up language in the natural environment. So if a child can't remember words, then they're not going to be able to, or sentences, they're not going to be able to learn language in the natural environment by hearing their mom or dad talk and imitating it. Then I also test higher level skills that focus on higher level thinking, like answering questions or problem solving or being able to read and understand. So their reading comprehension. Also, there are tests where I can test to see how they're processing information based on if they can do it within background noise, what if they can process information when somebody is talking fast, when somebody is talking slow. I can test to see what frequency they're hearing better. Different sounds are at different frequencies. So like the S sound is a high frequency sound and the B sound is a low frequency sound. So if a child is only able to process low frequency sounds, sometimes when you're talking to them, they'll mishear the S in words and it may be a B. So they'll think they heard a word, but they changed one letter in the word. So the whole meaning of the sentence changes.
Do you experience motor planning and auditory processing issues?
You mean personally? Yes, I do. I definitely have had motor planning disorder my entire life. I grew up a late talker. I didn't know why. And so it was always difficult for me to coordinate my muscles for speech, but I was able to do it. Even though I'm talking to you today, my verbal skills I have to struggle with and work on. So just to interview with you, just like you need accommodations, I need accommodations too. I have to practice over and over my verbal skills to be able to talk and plan what I'm going to say. I also have processing difficulties. So, and they've improved since I've searched out the most progressive techniques and used them on myself. I'm able to process things a little bit better. But you can see that sometimes I stutter or sometimes I'll say and that's an accommodation I use to give me more time to process the information in the brain. But both of them combined, there are some situations like learning how to drive a car. I totaled the driver's ed car the first day. So it took me much longer than my peers to learn how to drive and manipulate my hands and feet and coordinate them.
How old were you as a late talker?
I was about 4, and because that's a weakness, there's something called selective mutism. So I both have motor planning, which the speech diagnosis is called apraxia, and I am selectively mute. I still to this day am selectively mute. So when my peers are talking about a special interest of mine, I love music, I love social media marketing, I love anything neurodivergency. And so if somebody is talking to me about that, I can have a long conversation and not stop talking. But if my peers are talking about a topic I'm not familiar with, I shut down. I don't know how to react. I don't know what to talk about, and I become selectively mute.
Did you use any form of devices or sign language?
Do I use it or do my clients use it?
As a late talker, did you?
No, I just learned slower. But interesting enough, I have always been interested in sign language. So when I was really young, I would run downstairs, especially on Sunday mornings, and watch the interpreter on the bottom of the screen watching church shows. And I've always been interested in sign language, so much so that I actually attended Gallaudet University, which is the only deaf college in the world. And for the undergraduate department, they only allow students who are deaf, but the graduate school program allowed hearing people that wanted to learn more about oral rehabilitation and sign language. So in that community, I was not allowed to talk. I could only use sign language. I could talk. Yeah, it was really interesting, and I did so well. I could communicate better in sign than I could vocally. And that experience not only helped me to communicate better with my peers, but it also enabled me to learn how to read facial expressions for social situations.
How was your experience with speech therapy for motor planning and auditory processing?
You want to know what I do with my clients?
Did you receive speech therapy?
No, I did not receive speech therapy. But yeah, like I said, I was self-taught. And my family enrolled me in a lot of programs that worked on motor planning. And that's why I have such an interest in helping kids that have motor planning. So they enrolled me in dance classes, horseback riding, uh, gym classes to get me to coordinate my muscles. And that's what I do with my clients. So even if I just teach them gross motor and fine motor imitation, that stimulates the same part of the brain for oral motor stimulation. So it triggers them to be able to talk more. I have so many families where we haven't even gotten to speech programs and they're seeing progress with verbal production. So that's the same
Why not
experience I
speech
had.
therapy growing up?
You did?
Why did you not speech therapy growing up?
Because at the time I was not diagnosed. So I was born in the 60s. And during that time, a lot of individuals with cognitive difficulties or undiagnosed autism were having lobotomies. That's where they were removing the brain. So my family pushed me to do things and reinforced me a lot. So at that time, I was not identified with a problem. Just everybody around me said, you can do it, push yourself to do it. And it wasn't until I became a speech teacher that I started to be able to help myself and educate myself. So my entire life, I was unable to read. I would tell my family I can't read, and they would go and take me for glasses, but that didn't help. So it wasn't until I was in my 30s where I taught myself to read. Before that, I was hiring people to read to me.
What do you tell people today as advice?
Well, because I search out the most progressive techniques that nobody knows about, most of my clients, they have been told repeatedly from doctors, professional, neurologists, speech therapists, occupational therapists, that their child will never talk or thrive independently. And so I encourage all parents to seek out the most progressive techniques and have hope that they'll find the right person to help their family.
How are those techniques different?
Well, they're different because they're progressive, and hopefully in the next 10 years, more and more parents will learn about them. But like I said, every individual has a different learning style. I know for me, I'm a visual learner. So some kids thrive better with visual prompting, some thrive better with verbal prompting, some tactile, kinesthetic, physical prompting. So there are basically tools for everything to prompt and make life easier. Both at Speechworks by Elissa, I've combined all the approaches I've sought out in the last 30 years, and then the new app that I just co-founded called Climb RX. X. It's a neurodivergent community for professionals and parents, and it's like a Facebook group just for neurodivergency. And there are progressive therapists on staff, verified therapists, that give suggestions and recommendations to families in need to find out. It is very hard to find this progressive information. You can't Google it easily or find it on ChatGPT. So, but anybody that's listening to your podcast can reach out to me anytime. I'd be more than happy to provide resources in their area.
How do you address both motor planning and auditory processing issues simultaneously in therapy to support speech development?
Yes, I do. I combine all of them. What I typically do will guide parents on how to push their children through developmental milestones, whether that's motor milestones or auditory milestones. But we target those together, doing programs like motor imitation, clapping hands, or touching a body part. So learning those movements build muscle memory. And then once they learn those movements, then we add an auditory component to develop their auditory system, and we give them a direction, clap hands. Then they don't have a visual model for me. They have to move their muscles based on what they heard. That is how I teach sign language too. For some kids, the ultimate goal isn't for them to communicate primarily through sign language. But by teaching them sign language, it stimulates the same part of the brain to increase muscle memory so that they can learn how to coordinate muscles, their oral motor muscles, for speech production.
I fingerspell.
That's awesome.
Thank you, Elissa, for doing this with me. It was great to have you on. Please share this talk show with your family, friends, students, and colleagues. Everyone watching, don't forget to like, follow, subscribe, and share on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube.